Imagine the vast, unforgiving expanse of the ocean. A place of immense beauty, yet also profound terror. It's a realm where ships disappear, swallowed by storms or lost to the depths. But what if a ship didn't sink? What if it simply drifted? A vessel, sails set, in good condition, yet utterly devoid of life. No crew. No passengers. Only the wind, the waves, and a haunting, inexplicable silence. This is the chilling premise of one of history's most enduring maritime mysteries. December 4, 1872. The brigantine Dei Grazia, under the command of Captain David Morehouse, was making good time across the Atlantic. The sea, for the most part, was calm. Then, on the horizon, a sight that would become legend. Another brigantine. Familiar lines, yet something was undeniably wrong. It was behaving erratically. Its sails were partially set, but it seemed to wander without purpose. A ghost on the water. A vessel sailing, yet utterly lifeless. Captain Morehouse, a seasoned sailor, knew something was amiss. He ordered his crew to approach the strange vessel. As they drew closer, the eerie reality became clearer. No one appeared on deck. No flag was hoisted in greeting or distress. A ship of considerable size, a brigantine of 282 tons, simply abandoned. A profound unease settled over the crew of the Dei Grazia. They hailed the ship repeatedly. Silence. Only the creaking of the rigging and the sloshing of the waves answered their calls. A boarding party was dispatched. First Mate Oliver DeVoe, accompanied by two of the Dei Grazia's crew, rowed across the choppy waters. Their apprehension was palpable. What would they find? As they stepped onto the deck of the mystery ship, the silence was deafening. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Just an overwhelming sense of absence. It was the brigantine Mary Celeste, out of New York, bound for Genoa, Italy. The Mary Celeste. A name now synonymous with the inexplicable. But what was this vessel? A sturdy brigantine, measuring 103 feet in length, built for the rigors of transatlantic voyages. She was registered at 282 tons, a respectable size for a merchant vessel of her era. Her last port of call was New York, and her destination, the bustling Italian port of Genoa. A routine voyage, it seemed, until this chilling interception far out in the Atlantic. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste had departed from New York City. Her holds were filled with a specific, somewhat volatile, cargo, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol. A common shipment, certainly. She was under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, a man known for his experience and piety. With him, he brought his family. His wife, Sarah, and their young daughter, Sophia. This was to be a family voyage, a relatively standard journey across the ocean. Beyond Captain Briggs and his family, the Mary Celeste carried a crew of 7 experienced seamen. Skilled individuals, well versed in the challenges of the open sea. In total, 10 souls were aboard when the ship departed New York. A complete roster. Each with their own story, their own destination. All vanished. Without a trace. The question that immediately loomed, and still does, what could compel 10 people to abandon a perfectly sound vessel in the middle of the Atlantic? The boarding party's exploration of the Mary Celeste revealed a scene both ordinary and profoundly unsettling. No evidence of a struggle. No signs of violence. Yet, the absence was palpable. The ship was not in disarray, at least not in the violent way one might expect from a sudden attack. It was more like an instant evacuation. A hurried departure. The air thick with the unspoken story of what had unfolded here, somewhere between New York and Genoa. What the crew of the Dei Grazia found inside the Mary Celeste was a collection of haunting details. Food, still warm, left on the tables in the galley. Pipes, recently smoked, resting as if their owners would return any moment. A sewing machine, fabric still under the needle. child's toys, scattered, as if a game had been abruptly paused. These weren't signs of a vessel in distress, slowly sinking. These were snapshots of life, suddenly, inexplicably, interrupted. One of the most crucial pieces of evidence, or rather, the lack thereof, was the ship's logbook. While some navigation papers were found, the logbook itself was missing its most recent entries. The last entry dated November 25. This meant that for at least 9 days, between the last entry and the discovery on December 4, the ship's journey, and the fate of its crew, was a blank slate. An informational void. What happened in those 9 days? Beyond the logbook, other critical navigational tools were gone. The ship's sextant, vital for determining latitude, and the chronometer, essential for calculating longitude, were nowhere to be found. These were not items one would simply misplace. Their absence strongly suggested a deliberate act of taking them. Why would a crew, abandoning ship in an emergency, bother to grab such instruments? Unless they intended to use them elsewhere. A desperate hope for survival? Adding another layer to the enigma, one of the ship's 3 pumps was found partially disassembled on deck. This could imply a recent attempt to repair it, or perhaps a desperate effort to clear water. But if the ship was taking on water, why leave it? Why not continue pumping? The fact that the ship was still seaworthy and only had 3.5 feet of water in the hold upon discovery complicated this theory. A working pump, but a disassembled one. A paradox. Perhaps the most telling piece of physical evidence was the missing lifeboat. The Mary Celeste carried only one lifeboat. It was gone. This confirmed that the crew and passengers had, in fact, left the ship. But under what circumstances? Had they launched it in an orderly fashion, convinced of imminent disaster? Or was it a chaotic, desperate flight? The empty davit swung gently in the ocean breeze, a silent testament to a hasty departure. Crucially, despite the missing crew and lifeboat, the Mary Celeste herself was sound. Her hull was undamaged. Her sails, though partially set and somewhat ragged, were capable of propelling her across the ocean. She was not sinking. She was not wrecked. She was merely abandoned. A perfectly good ship, still floating, still capable of sailing, yet utterly deserted. This fact alone deepens the mystery immeasurably. Why would experienced sailors abandon a ship that was fundamentally seaworthy? The Mary Celeste was eventually sailed to Gibraltar by the salvage crew from the Dei Grazia. There, a formal inquiry was launched to unravel the baffling circumstances. The Vice Admiralty Court in Gibraltar investigated for months. Judge Solly Flood, a notoriously suspicious man, harbored dark suspicions of foul play, even of a conspiracy between the 2 captains. But evidence for such claims was conspicuously absent. The truth, stubbornly, refused to surface. Despite Judge Flood's suspicions, the inquiry found no concrete evidence of mutiny, piracy, or any other violent act. The ship's conditions simply didn't support it. There were no signs of a struggle on deck or below. No blood, save for a questionable stain on a sword in Captain Briggs's cabin, later dismissed as rust or animal blood. No forced entry into the cabins. The crew had simply left. A voluntary, yet inexplicable, abandonment. It baffled everyone involved. The theory of piracy was quickly dismissed. The ship's cargo, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, was largely intact. While a few barrels showed signs of tampering, it was not extensive enough to suggest a large-scale pirate raid. Furthermore, personal valuables belonging to the crew and Captain Briggs were found undisturbed. Pirates would typically plunder anything of value. Their absence strengthened the baffling nature of the crew's disappearance. It wasn't about theft. Mutiny was another early theory, but it, too, faltered. Captain Briggs was a respected leader, and his crew, experienced and seemingly loyal. There was no history of dissent or trouble on board. More importantly, a mutiny would almost certainly have left signs of violence. A struggle. Blood. These were absent. Why would mutineers abandon a perfectly good ship after taking control? And where would they go in a single lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic? It made no sense. With foul play seemingly ruled out, investigators turned to the immense power of nature. Could a sudden, violent storm have swept the crew overboard? Unlikely, given the ship's condition. What about a rogue wave? A monstrous wall of water, appearing without warning, capable of washing 10 people and a lifeboat into the sea. It's a terrifying thought, but could it explain the orderly nature of the abandoned personal items? The food on the table? This remains a point of contention. A more specific natural phenomenon proposed was a waterspout. A column of rotating air and water, strong enough to disorient and perhaps even damage a ship. Could a waterspout have appeared suddenly, forcing the crew into the lifeboat, only for the spout to dissipate, leaving the Mary Celeste relatively unharmed? The missing navigation tools might support the idea of them trying to navigate the lifeboat. But the timing, the lack of extensive damage to the ship, the absence of witness accounts from the crew, still, a compelling, if unproven, idea. Another theory, less common but still considered, involves a sea quake. An underwater earthquake powerful enough to cause severe, disorienting tremors. Such an event could have caused panic, convincing the crew that the ship was breaking apart or about to capsize. This could explain a hasty abandonment. However, like other natural phenomena, it struggles to account for the ship's remarkably good condition. No structural damage. No broken masts. Just the lingering, unsettling silence. The Mary Celeste's cargo, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, plays a significant role in one of the most widely accepted theories. Denatured alcohol, while not as volatile as pure ethanol, can still produce flammable vapors. What if some of these barrels had leaked? What if the captain and crew feared an imminent explosion? A catastrophic blast that could rip the ship apart, leaving no trace of those on board. This theory suggests that Captain Briggs, observing or smelling alcohol fumes, might have ordered the ship's only lifeboat to be lowered. The plan, to take his family and crew, tether the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste, and wait for the perceived danger to pass. A temporary evacuation. A precautionary measure against a feared explosion. It explains why they might have taken the sextant and chronometer. They intended to return to their ship and continue their journey. What then? A sudden gust of wind. A snapped rope. A rogue wave. Any number of unforeseen circumstances could have severed the tether between the lifeboat and the Mary Celeste. The crew, trapped in the smaller boat, would have watched in horror as their ship, seemingly recovered from its peril, drifted away. Lost at sea, unable to catch up, the Mary Celeste sailing on, an empty shell, while its crew met a far more tragic, and unseen, fate. A cruel twist of maritime misfortune. The sword, found in Captain Briggs's cabin with traces of blood, often resurfaces in discussions. Initially, it fueled suspicions of murder or a violent struggle. However, forensic analysis, even in rudimentary 19th century terms, largely dismissed it. Rust, or perhaps blood from an animal slaughtered for food, were considered far more plausible explanations. Yet, the image persists. A bloody blade. A hidden truth. It adds a macabre layer to an already unsettling mystery, even if scientifically disproven. According to the last logbook entry, dated November 25, the Mary Celeste was located off the Azores. This means that for 9 days, the ship drifted approximately 400 miles before being discovered by the Dei Grazia between the Azores and Portugal. This distance, combined with the wind and currents, is consistent with a ship found partially under sail. It tells us where they were, but nothing of why they left. Just a point on a map, marking the edge of knowledge. Ultimately, the mystery of the Mary Celeste is a human one. 10 lives. Captain Briggs, his wife, their child, and 7 seamen. Each with their own reasons for being on that ship. Each with their own hopes and fears. What thoughts must have raced through their minds in those final moments, whatever they were? The abruptness of their disappearance, the absolute silence that followed, is what truly haunts. Their stories, unfinished. Their fates, unknown. Even 150 years later, theories continue to abound. Each new generation attempts to piece together the fragmented evidence, to find a logical explanation for the inexplicable. Was it a combination of factors? A small fire, an imagined explosion, a panic-stricken abandonment, followed by a tragic separation? Or was it something far stranger, something the rational mind struggles to accept? The sea, after all, holds many secrets. And some, it seems, it prefers to keep. While the Mary Celeste remains the most famous, she is not the only vessel to be found adrift and abandoned. The Haiyan 6, the Ginseng, the Kes 2, modern echoes of the same chilling phenomenon. Each one a ship sailing under its own power, yet without a human hand at the helm. These contemporary cases only serve to underscore the enduring fragility of human presence on the vast ocean, and the powerful, unpredictable forces that can claim it without a trace. The story of the Mary Celeste resonates because it taps into our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, of vanishing without a trace, of confronting an unexplainable void. It's a reminder of humanity's precarious position against the raw power of nature. A ship, a symbol of human ingenuity and control, rendered meaningless when its human element is suddenly, utterly removed. It forces us to ask, what really happened out there? The Mary Celeste sailed into history as a profound enigma. A ship full of life's mundane objects, yet utterly empty of life itself. The clues, tantalizingly present, yet stubbornly incomplete. Each theory, seemingly plausible, yet always leaving a gap, a lingering question. The sea, it seems, does not readily give up its most baffling secrets. And the silence that surrounds the Mary Celeste continues to whisper across the waves, a chilling reminder of an unsolved disappearance. One final, compelling theory integrates several elements. The partially disassembled pump and the water in the hold indicate a potential problem. Captain Briggs, a cautious man, might have miscalculated. Perhaps he ordered the temporary abandonment due to perceived flooding or the fear of alcohol fumes tethering the lifeboat. A sudden swell or unexpected wave could have then broken the tether, leaving the crew stranded. A series of unfortunate events, cascading into tragedy. In the face of perceived danger, even experienced sailors can make choices driven by panic or a desperate desire to protect their loved ones. Captain Briggs had his wife and young daughter on board. The thought of them being caught in an explosion or sinking with the ship would be unbearable. This emotional element, combined with a potentially flawed assessment of the situation, could explain the seemingly illogical abandonment of a seaworthy vessel. Fear, a powerful motivator. The Mary Celeste story has transcended maritime history, weaving its way into literature, film, and popular culture. It stands as the quintessential ghost ship, a symbol of the ocean's enduring power to consume and confound. Every detail, from the sewing machine to the missing lifeboat, has been picked apart, debated, and reinterpreted. Yet, the central question persists: what happened to those 10 souls? Their disappearance remains one of the sea's greatest unsolved riddles. Some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. The Mary Celeste is perhaps one of them. Despite centuries of inquiry, the exact sequence of events that led to the disappearance of Captain Briggs, his family, and crew remains shrouded in the mists of time and the vastness of the Atlantic. It serves as a stark reminder that even with all our advancements, the ocean retains its capacity for inexplicable events. For truly chilling stories. The men, women, and child of the Mary Celeste stepped off their ship into history, or perhaps, into oblivion. Their bodies were never found. Their ultimate fate, a subject of endless speculation. Did they perish in the small lifeboat? Were they rescued by another ship, only to be lost at sea later? Or did something truly extraordinary occur, a phenomenon beyond our current comprehension? The ocean keeps its counsel. And the Mary Celeste sails on, in our minds, forever empty.